Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today, we're diving into Blue Ocean Strategy. It's by W. Chan Kim and Renée Mauborgne. It's a business book that's made a real splash, and for good reason. Imagine finding a market so wide open it's like an untouched blue ocean, ripe for the taking. That's the core idea here,
Yeah.
and we're going to unpack how to actually make it happen.
What's exciting about this book is it doesn't just tell you to be more innovative. It lays out a structured way to think about creating value that nobody else is offering. So you're not stuck fighting tooth and nail for every customer.
Okay, so to start, let's paint a picture for our listener. What are the main themes that run through Blue Ocean Strategy?
The book is all about shifting your focus from red oceans to blue oceans. Red oceans represent the crowded markets we all know, where companies are battling fiercely for a limited slice of the pie. Blue oceans, on the other hand, are uncontested market spaces where competition is irrelevant because you've created something truly new and valuable.
So it's not about beating the competition. It's about making the competition irrelevant. I like that. But how do you actually go about finding or creating these blue oceans?
That's where the concept of value innovation comes in. It's the cornerstone of blue ocean strategy. It's not just about adding features or being a little bit cheaper. It's about making a fundamental leap in the value you offer buyers while also finding ways to reduce your costs. It's about doing both simultaneously.
That sounds almost like a paradox. How can you increase value and lower costs at the same time? Isn't that a trade-off?
That's the traditional thinking. But blue ocean strategy challenges that assumption. Think of Cirque du Soleil. They reinvented the circus experience instead of trying to compete with traditional circuses on animal acts and star performers, which are incredibly expensive. They eliminated those altogether. They brought in original music, theatrical themes, and a whole new sophisticated ambiance. This allowed them to attract a different audience, willing to pay higher prices, while reducing their costs.
That's a great example. So it's about rethinking the whole value proposition, not just tweaking around the edges.
Exactly. The authors provide a framework called the 4 Actions Framework to help you do just that. It's deceptively simple. Eliminate, reduce, raise, and create.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. First, you identify factors that your industry takes for granted, things that maybe no longer add value or could be eliminated entirely to cut costs. Then you look for factors you can reduce below industry standards. Maybe it's something that customers don't really care about but adds to your cost structure.
So far, it sounds like we're just cutting things. What about adding value?
That's where the raise and create actions come in. You identify factors you can raise above industry standards, things that customers really value and would pay a premium for. And finally, you look for completely new factors that the industry has never offered before. This is where you can unlock true blue ocean potential.
This framework seems like a really practical way to start rethinking your offering and finding those opportunities for value innovation. But even with a great idea, I imagine it can be challenging to shift gears as a company, right?
You're absolutely right. Creating a blue ocean isn't just about having a brilliant idea, it's about execution, about getting your entire organization on board. And the book dives deep into the human side of strategy, offering practical advice on how to overcome organizational hurdles and lead change effectively.
So it's not enough to just draw up a fancy strategy document, and expect everyone to fall in line. You have to bring people along on the journey. What are some of the key insights on that front?
One concept that really stands out is tipping point leadership. The authors argue that instead of trying to change everyone's minds at once, which can be overwhelming and lead to resistance, you should focus on winning over a critical mass of people, those who can influence others, and create a cascade effect throughout the organization.
So it's about finding those key influencers and getting them excited about the blue ocean vision.
Precisely. They suggest a few powerful techniques for doing this. One is to make people confront the brutal reality of the situation instead of relying on dry reports and numbers. Show them firsthand the problems that need to be addressed. If you're losing customers, take your team out, see where those customers are going, why they're choosing alternatives. Let them experience the problem viscerally.
That's a powerful way to break through complacency and create a sense of urgency. What are some other techniques they recommend?
Another one is horse trading, which is about exchanging resources you don't need for those you do, instead of fighting for a bigger budget, which can be a long and tedious process. Look for ways to reallocate existing resources to support the blue ocean strategy. The authors give a great example from the New York City Police Department under William Bratton. He dramatically improved public safety, not by getting more money, but by shifting officers from low-crime areas to high-crime hotspots.
So it's about working smarter not just harder, and making the most of what you already have.
Exactly. Another critical aspect of leading change is communication. And not just any communication, but clear and frequent communication. The book emphasizes the importance of transparency and accountability. In the NYPD example, Bratton held daily meetings with his precinct commanders, creating a fishbowl where everyone could see the successes, the failures, and the lessons learned. This fostered a sense of shared responsibility and helped align the entire organization around the new strategy.
That's such a great example of how leadership is not about barking orders from the top. It's about engaging and inspiring people at every level.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Blue Ocean Strategy also highlights the importance of navigating the political landscape within your organization. You need to identify your angels, those who stand to benefit from the change, and your devils, those who might resist it.
I can see how that would be crucial. You want to leverage the support of the angels and neutralize the resistance of the devils. Do they offer any specific advice on how to do that?
They recommend finding a consigliere, a politically savvy and respected insider who can help you anticipate and overcome resistance. In the NYPD case, Bratton's consigliere was Jack Maple, a legendary transit cop known for his crime mapping expertise. He helped Bratton gain buy-in from skeptical officers and navigate the complex politics of the department.
So it's not just about having a great vision. It's about understanding the internal dynamics and building the necessary alliances to make that vision a reality. This deep dive is already giving me so much to think about. We've covered the core concepts of red and blue oceans, the power of value innovation, and now we're starting to see how important the human side of strategy is.
Absolutely. And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in Blue Ocean Strategy, including those specific paths to unlock new market space and how to make your blue ocean sustainable over time.
Well, listener, I hope you're as intrigued as I am. We'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into Blue Ocean Strategy, where we'll continue to unpack these powerful ideas.
Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into Blue Ocean Strategy.
Last time we were talking about how to get your whole team on board with making a big change, like shifting to a blue ocean strategy.
Right. Because it's one thing to have a great idea, but it's another thing entirely to actually make it happen within an existing company.
Exactly. So Blue Ocean Strategy dives into some pretty practical ways to overcome those organizational hurdles. And one that really stood out to me was this idea of fair process.
Ah, yes. Fair process. It is essential when you're asking people to embrace a big change, especially one that might push them outside their comfort zones.
It sounds like a pretty touchy-feely concept for a business book, but I'm guessing there's more to it than just being nice.
Oh, absolutely. The authors argue that fair process is not just about being nice. It's about engaging people in the decision-making process, explaining the rationale behind the decisions, and making sure everyone feels like they've been heard and treated fairly.
So it's not just what decisions are made, but how those decisions are made.
Exactly. They use a great analogy. From a manufacturing company called Elco, the company was implementing a new manufacturing process at 2 different plants. At one plant, they just announced the change with very little explanation, and it created a lot of anxiety and resistance.
That makes sense. People generally don't like change being thrust upon them.
Right. But at the other plant, they involved the workers in the planning process, explained why the change was necessary, and actually solicited their feedback. And guess which plant had a smoother implementation?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the plant that involved the workers.
You got it. The plant where fair process was followed saw a much faster and smoother transition.
This highlights how important it is to bring people along on the journey, not just tell them where they're going.
Absolutely. The authors make a compelling case that fair process isn't just about being nice or politically correct. It's a strategic imperative. It builds trust. It unlocks people's intellectual and emotional energy. And ultimately, it leads to more successful execution. And that's especially critical when you're asking people to embrace a bold new strategy, like creating a blue ocean.
This really ties back to what we were talking about earlier with tipping point leadership.
Right.
And building those coalitions within your organization.
Yes, exactly. It's all interconnected. You need to win over key influencers. You need to communicate clearly and frequently. And you need to make sure everyone feels like they're part of the process. That's how you create the momentum you need to make a big change like this happen.
Okay, so let's assume we've got our team on board. We're all fired up about creating a blue ocean. But where do we even begin? How do we actually find those uncontested market spaces?
Great question. The book provides a really useful framework called the 6 Paths Framework to help you do just that. It encourages you to look beyond your immediate industry and competitors to find hidden opportunities.
This sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
The first path is to look across alternative industries. Instead of focusing on your direct competitors, think about what customers choose instead of your industry's offerings. For example, NetJets created a blue ocean by offering the convenience and speed of private jets, but with a cost structure closer to commercial airlines. They weren't competing directly with other private jet companies. They were offering a new alternative to people who might have been using commercial airlines or even driving long distances.
So it's about looking at the bigger picture, at the different ways customers are trying to solve their problems, even if those solutions aren't traditionally considered part of your industry.
Exactly. The second path is to look across strategic groups within your industry. This means thinking about what makes customers trade up or down within the existing price performance tiers. A great example of this is Curves, the women's fitness franchise. They targeted women who wanted a simple, affordable workout, but weren't interested in all the bells and whistles of traditional gyms. They created a whole new category within the fitness industry by focusing on a specific segment of non-customers.
I'm starting to see how these paths can help you break out of that traditional competitive mindset
Hmm.
and uncover those hidden opportunities.
Right. The third path is to look across the chain of buyers. This means considering who actually influences the purchasing decision. Is it the purchaser, the
Hmm.
user, or maybe an influencer? Novo Nordisk, the insulin company, shifted its focus from doctors to diabetic patients. They realized that patients were ultimately the ones who had to live with the insulin delivery systems. So they created more user-friendly products that address the needs of the patients directly.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about understanding the entire ecosystem around your product or service and identifying where you can create the most value.
Exactly. Path 4 encourages you to look across complementary product and service offerings. This is all about thinking about what happens before, during, and after your product is used. Are there pain points you can solve that no one else is addressing? NABI buses did this by offering lower life cycle costs and increased environmental friendliness to municipalities, which made their buses more appealing even though they might have had a higher upfront cost.
So it's about looking beyond the immediate transaction and considering the whole customer experience.
Right. The fifth path is to look across functional or emotional appeal to buyers. This one's about considering if you could tap into a different appeal to attract a wider audience. Cemex, the cement company in Mexico, did this brilliantly. They tapped into the emotional appeal of cement by offering a savings club to help families build homes, essentially turning cement into a symbol of family and aspiration.
Wow, that's an incredible example of how reframing the emotional connection to a product can unlock new markets.
It really is. And finally, Path 6 encourages us to look across time. This is about analyzing trends and projecting their impact on your industry. A classic example is Apple capitalizing on the rise of illegal music sharing to create iTunes. They saw the trend, understood the problem, and provided a legal user-friendly solution that addressed the needs of both music lovers and the music industry.
So it's about being aware of the shifts happening in the world around you and anticipating how they might create new opportunities.
Exactly. By applying these 6 paths, you can systematically challenge your assumptions about where to compete and uncover those blue oceans that are just waiting to be discovered.
This is all incredibly useful, but I imagine it can be overwhelming to think about applying all of these paths at once.
You're right, it can be a lot to take in. That's why the book also provides practical tools to help you make sense of all this information and make strategic choices. One of the key tools they introduce is the strategy canvas.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this strategy canvas.
The strategy canvas is a visual tool that helps you map out the competitive landscape. It's a simple but powerful diagram that allows you to see at a glance how different players in your industry are positioned and where there might be opportunities to create a blue ocean.
So it's like a visual representation of those 6 paths we just discussed.
In a way, yes. It helps you visualize the key factors that the industry competes on and where there might be white space to create new value.
This is starting to make a lot of sense. But even if we can identify these blue ocean opportunities, how do we ensure they're sustainable? We talked earlier about how blue oceans don't last forever, that competitors eventually emerge. How do you prevent your beautiful blue ocean from turning into another bloody red ocean?
That's a crucial question, and the book dedicates a significant portion to addressing it. Sustainability, according to Blue Ocean Strategy, comes from several key factors. First, continuous value innovation is essential. You can't just rest on your laurels. You have to keep pushing the boundaries, finding new ways to create value for buyers.
So it's about staying ahead of the curve, being proactive, And always looking for ways to improve your offering.
Absolutely. Another important factor is creating barriers to imitation. You want to make it difficult and costly for competitors to copy your success.
I can see how that would be crucial. If it's easy for others to replicate what you're doing, your blue ocean won't stay blue for long. How do you create those barriers?
It can involve several things: building strong brand equity, securing intellectual property protection, or developing unique capabilities that are difficult to replicate. It's about creating a competitive advantage that goes beyond just having a good product or service.
Right, it's about building a moat around your blue ocean. And of course, building a loyal customer base is key.
Absolutely. If your customers love your offering
Yeah.
and feel a strong connection to your brand, they'll be less likely to jump ship when competitors come knocking. Building that loyalty takes time and effort, but it's essential for long-term sustainability.
So it's a combination of staying innovative,
Hmm.
making yourself difficult to copy, and building strong relationships with their customers.
Precisely. It's an ongoing process, not a one-time event, and it requires a different mindset than simply trying to outmaneuver your competitors in a red ocean.
This is all so insightful. I feel like we're really starting to get a grasp on the key elements of blue ocean strategy and how they all fit together. But I'm curious, is there a particular passage or concept from the book that has really stuck with you, something that you find yourself coming back to again and again?
There's a quote that really encapsulates the core idea of blue ocean strategy. It goes, "Value innovation is created in the region where a company's actions favorably affect both its cost structure and its value proposition to buyers."
That's a powerful statement. It really highlights how value innovation is not about making trade-offs. It's about finding ways to do both, lower costs, and increase value for buyers.
Exactly. And it's that simultaneous pursuit of differentiation and low cost that allows you to create a blue ocean, a space where you're not just competing on price or features, but offering something truly unique and compelling. That's what makes this book so valuable. It's not just about finding a niche market, it's about creating a new market space altogether, a space where competition is irrelevant because you're playing a different game.
I love that. It's about changing the rules of the game, not just playing the existing game better.
Precisely. And that's what makes blue ocean strategy so inspiring. It empowers you to think bigger, to challenge the status quo, and to create a future where you're not just surviving, but thriving.
Well, listener, I don't know about you, but my mind is buzzing with ideas. This deep dive has already given me so much to think about, and we're not even finished yet.
We still got more ground to cover in blue ocean strategy, including those essential tools for putting these concepts into practice and ensuring your blue ocean stays blue.
So join us next time for the final part of our deep dive into blue ocean strategy. We'll explore those practical tools and wrap up our exploration of this game-changing book. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into blue ocean strategy.
We've covered a lot of ground, from understanding those core concepts of red and blue oceans to exploring the 6 paths and those practical tools like the strategy canvas.
And we've talked about how important it is to get your team on board
Yeah,
and create a culture that supports this kind of innovative thinking.
right. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's crucial to address the question that's probably on our listeners' mind. How do you actually put all of this into practice?
Because it's one thing to understand the theory, but it's another thing entirely to translate that into action.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of strategic sequencing comes in. The authors argue that there's a specific order you need to follow when developing and executing your blue ocean strategy.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this strategic sequencing.
It's all about tackling the elements of your strategy in the right order to ensure that you're creating something that's both viable and sustainable. They break it down into 4 key steps: buyer utility, price, cost, and then adoption.
So you start with buyer utility, making sure your offering actually provides exceptional value to your target buyers.
Exactly. You need to answer the question: is there a compelling reason for buyers to choose your offering over what's currently available? If the answer is no, then you're not creating a blue ocean. You're just adding to the noise in the red ocean.
That makes a lot of sense. So once you've established that there's real buyer utility, what's next?
Then you set the strategic price. This means determining a price point that will attract a large number of buyers and make your offering accessible to the mass market.
Okay, so you're thinking about affordability and market penetration right from the start.
Exactly. You don't want to price yourself out of the market.
Mm,
Or create a niche product that only appeals to a small segment of buyers.
makes sense. So we've got buyer utility and price. What's the third step in the sequence?
The third step is to determine your target cost. This is the cost you need to achieve to make a profit at your strategic price point.
So you're working backward from the price to figure out how much you can afford to spend on developing and delivering your offering.
Exactly. This is where you might need to get creative and challenge those traditional cost structures. Remember, Blue Ocean strategy is all about finding ways to reduce costs while increasing value.
Right. It's about that simultaneous pursuit of differentiation and low cost that we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And finally, once you've got your buyer utility, price, and cost figured out,
Yeah.
you need to address the adoption hurdles.
What do you mean by adoption hurdles?
These are any obstacles that might prevent buyers from embracing your offering. It could be anything from lack of awareness to resistance to change to existing habits and loyalties.
So you need to anticipate those hurdles
Oh.
and develop strategies to overcome them.
Exactly. This might involve educating buyers about the benefits of your offering, addressing their concerns, or finding ways to make it easy and convenient for them to switch.
This whole strategic sequencing framework seems incredibly valuable. It provides a roadmap for turning a blue ocean idea into a concrete plan.
I agree. And it highlights how important it is to think through all of the elements of your strategy, not just the creative, innovative part, but also the practical, executional part.
Because a great idea is worthless if you can't actually bring it to market.
Exactly. And that's what makes Blue Ocean strategy so much more than just a theoretical framework. It gives you practical tools and processes to turn your ideas into reality.
And speaking of practical tools, one that we touched on earlier was the 4 actions framework. That simple but powerful set of actions: eliminate, reduce, raise, and create.
Ah, yes. That framework is incredibly useful for challenging those traditional industry assumptions and finding those opportunities for value innovation.
It's a great way to start thinking outside the box and looking for those white spaces on the strategy canvas.
Exactly. By applying those 4 actions systematically, you can uncover those hidden opportunities,
Yeah.
then create offerings that stand apart from the competition.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to a new way of thinking about strategy. It's not about battling it out in a crowded marketplace. It's about creating your own space where competition is irrelevant.
I couldn't agree more. Blue Ocean strategy provides a powerful framework for innovation, growth, and sustainability. It challenges us to think differently, to be bold, and to never settle for the status quo.
And I think that's a message that resonates with everyone. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a CEO, or just someone looking to make a difference in your own life.
Absolutely. We all have the potential to create our own blue oceans. It starts with a willingness to challenge assumptions, to explore new possibilities, and to never stop innovating.
Well, listener, we've reached the end of our deep dive into blue ocean strategy. We hope you found this exploration as insightful and inspiring as we have.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the fundamentals of red and blue ocean thinking to practical frameworks and compelling real-world examples.
We've talked about the importance of value innovation, strategic sequencing, and building a culture of execution.
And we've explored those essential tools like the 6 paths framework, the strategy canvas, and the 4 actions framework.
But most importantly, we hope we've sparked a new way of thinking about strategy, a way that empowers you to create your own blue oceans and achieve extraordinary success.
So go out there, challenge the status quo, and make those blue oceans a reality.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep swimming towards the blue.